Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, Dillian Whyte, since his knockout defeat to Tyson Fury this past Saturday, has now broken his media silence. He did an interview with Sky Sports, briefly addressing the Tyson Fury defeat, and, I think how Dillian Whyte came across, in my opinion at least, wasn't exactly a good look. Especially considering what he was saying about Deontay Wilder following Wilder's defeats to Tyson Fury. But essentially, and I'll paraphrase, Dillian Whyte, he admitted that he got buzzed by the uppercut, but according to him, the push was what basically finished the job. He was saying that it was illegal, which it was by the way, but he was saying after he got pushed, he lost his footing, hit his head on the canvas, and that was basically it, that he deserved more time to recover, essentially because the push and how he fell did most of the damage. Not a particularly good look for Dillian Whyte in my opinion. I mean, technically the push was illegal, but both guys were doing some illegal things in there. I don't think either guy was favoured by the referee. At times Fury was holding, whereas Dillian Whyte was rabbit punching and using the illegal forearm. It was what it was. It was what it was. So yeah, I didn't really think it's a good look for Dillian Whyte, quite frankly. And it's kind of funny as well because he didn't do any interviews with BT, barely before the fight or after, and he runs off to Sky Sports to conduct this interview. A little bit strange, in my opinion, but considering what he said about Deontay Wilder, and considering what these Dillian Whyte fans were saying about Wilder for months now, this isn't a particularly good look. Just have some self-awareness is what I'm saying. But, he seemed okay after the defeat. He actually seemed quite nonchalant about it, saying it is what it is, etc, etc. But yeah, he seemed very nonchalant about the loss. He was also saying that the fight was nip and tuck. Again, I must have been watching a different fight. To me, Dillian Whyte never got going, and he was completely neutralised. On my card, Dillian Whyte didn't win a round, so I'm not sure what Dillian Whyte is seeing in that performance that makes him feel that it was a nip and tuck fight, that he's on that sort of level, because that type of thinking isn't necessarily going to lend you to improve in the future if you can't see what you did wrong, if you think that you was on the level of Tyson Fury for those 6 rounds until you got caught. So I think he needs to go back and rewatch the fight and really analyse it to see what he did wrong. But Dillian Whyte, apart from that, he seemed in good spirits. He was saying that he wasn't planning on retiring, that he was planning on coming back, and I wanted to talk about that in regards to Dillian Whyte's future and where he goes from here. I have to say, the current landscape as of right now, Dillian Whyte's title aspirations need to be put on the back burner, because right now we have 2 unbelievable heavyweight champions, unbelievably hard to beat in, obviously, Tyson Fury, 6'9", switch hitter, very good boxer, very versatile, and on the flip side we have the unified champion, Alexander Usyk, former undisputed at cruiserweight, Olympic gold medalist, insanely good boxer, and a dangerous guy in his own right. The two heavyweight champions right now are extremely, extremely good. So Dillian's title aspirations need to be put on the back burner. But Dillian Whyte certainly, outside of that, has many fun fights in the division. Obviously, the Derek Chisora trilogy fight will always be there for him. And a lot of people would want to see that fight. Me personally, I don't really have much interest in it anymore. I think that's been done to death. But reality is, if it were to get made, it would do quite well. But there's other names out there for Dillian Whyte. Andy Ruiz, for example, would make a lot of sense. Andy Ruiz still has name value, a former heavyweight champion in his own right. And, put those 2 guys together stylistically, that's a hell of a fight. Andy Ruiz, in his prior fight against Chris Arreola, looked vulnerable, whereas Dillian's been looking vulnerable recently. So put those 2 guys together, that will generate a lot of interest, and it would be a really good fight in my opinion. And obviously there's going to be a lot of money to come with that. Of course, who knows, what about Deontay Wilder versus Dillian Whyte? Are you saying you wouldn't be interested in that fight? If that fight got signed tomorrow, I'd be fucking all for it. It's a great fight between Deontay Wilder and Dillian Whyte. To me, it makes a lot of sense, almost like a loser leaves town type scenario. As of right now, both guys are still top 10 heavyweights. Both guys coming off knockout defeats. Chuck them in together. Both guys vulnerable. It would be a hell of a build-up, and the winner would put themselves back in a position where they are, relevant in the elite level. So Wilder versus Dillian Whyte to me makes a lot of sense. If I could make any fight, it would be that fight. Deontay versus Dillian. I think that would be a great fight. So much back history, great storyline going into the fight, and again, stylistically, both guys can crack. Both guys are vulnerable. What's not to like there? But failing that, Dillian Whyte can explore his options. He doesn't have any set promotional contract. He goes fight by fight with Eddie Hearn, and his last fight was on BT. So Dillian Whyte is free to go to whoever he wants. So yeah, maybe Dillian could go on Sky, maybe fight Hughie Fury, something like that. There's a lot of options out there for Dillian Whyte. Maybe if Joseph Parker doesn't fight Joe Joyce, if that fight falls through, a Parker rematch would make a lot of sense. A Joe Joyce fight would make a lot of sense. What I'm saying is, there's a lot of money left on the table for Dillian Whyte, and there are certain fights out there for him that would generate a lot of interest. Who knows, maybe if Joshua loses to Alexander Usyk again, a Joshua Whyte rematch would make a lot of sense. So, as bad as Dillian was on Saturday, and I thought he was really poor. I was expecting Tyson Fury to win, and win by late stoppage, but I was expecting more from Dillian Whyte. I knew he was the shorter guy with shorter reach. I knew Tyson Fury was more skilled across the board, but I did expect more tenacity from Dillian Whyte. But nevertheless, it was a bad performance, but he's had some really good fights in the past, really exciting fights. So get him in there with the right opponent, then yeah, Dillian can still be in some really fun fights. He just needs to knock the title aspiration on the head right now. Maybe try and get a couple of wins and see where he stands then, see what the title picture is. But, to say he should retire, I wouldn't go that far. I think that's reactionary. Dillian Whyte still has a place in the heavyweight division. Look at Derek Chisora. How many defeats has that guy had now? 11? 12? And he's still getting big fights. He's still getting paid. So it's not necessarily about, having a pretty record and being a world level guy or a future heavyweight champion. You can offer more to the sport than just that. You can be an action star type of fighter where you're always in good fights. And Dillian Whyte, for the most part, is in pretty good fights. So, yeah, I wouldn't retire yet if I was Dillian Whyte. I wouldn't advise him to retire, quite frankly. But yeah, he needs to rebuild. And we'll see where he goes. I didn't really like the interview that he did with Sky. But it is what it is, man. Fighters tell themselves some strange things at times to kind of rationalise their defeat. I guess that's just human nature, right? So it is what it is. Anyway, share your thoughts below. What do you make of Dillian Whyte's future? Who should he fight next? Or do you believe he should retire? Share your thoughts below. It's been your guy Delboy. Peace.